Welcome to the Paranormal Zone, where we offer a voice to the paranormal community. On behalf of my great co-host, Tom Spitalere, and myself, we want to welcome the top-rated medium in New England, Debbie Knowles. Debbie, welcome to the Paranormal Zone.
Hi, guys. I'm so happy to join you again.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back.
Exciting.
It's nice to have you. Debbie, one of the things that we always try to talk to people in the paranormal like yourself about is how when they first recognized they had this gift. How old were you when you first recognized that you were a medium?
So, and what a great question, because a lot of people don't remember their memories when they were young. I'm talking 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. The earliest memory I have is when I was 2 years old. And it's hard for many people to understand that. But remember, being a medium, I work consciously and subconsciously. So I just always had a very high vibrational level of energy, consciously and subconsciously. So I believe that's why I was able to remember these memories of being able to do things and see things at such a young age, because of my subconscious and conscious being so just elevated, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. So at age 2, what were you experiencing?
I remember that at the time we lived in the Methuen and Lawrence, Mass area, and, always lived in 2 or 3 family kind of homes. And I remember seeing, if you want to call them ghosts, apparitions, entities, however, people have different titles and definitions for them. But I remember seeing them thinking they were part of the family, because why would these things be in your house or sit at the dinner table? Or, having, when your mother is bathing 3 kids and there's an extra kid in the tub, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just got me thinking, okay, there's something going on here, and how come my mom doesn't put a plate in front of that person, but she puts plates in front of all of us? That's when I started putting things together, was when that happened. Yeah.
So, Debbie, you obviously grew up in one of the, we're broadcasting live from the James R. Ross, well, not live, but we will be live eventually, from the James R. Ross Memorial Studios in haunted downtown Lawrence, right on Essex Street. This building's...
No way. I didn't know that.
This building has paranormal activity. I'm from Methuen, so I've done a lot of cases. I grew up in Methuen. My family's been in Methuen since the early, well, actually even earlier than that, the mid-1800s.
No, Tom, I've known you for years. How come I never knew that?
Well, I don't usually talk about that unless I didn't know you were from the Valley originally. I thought you were from southern New Hampshire.
No, I grew up in Lawrence, Mass.
You're a Valley girl.
Yeah, and right on 114, right near 114 Showcase Cinema, kind of where the projects were. I was only a few blocks from there.
Oh, I know where you were. Yes, you're right near the oldest.
My childhood.
Right.
And then when I was a teenager, we moved to Hudson, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
And I've always been in Hudson since then. But that's where I get some of the Massachusetts accent myself, is because that's where we're from.
Now,
funny.
You remember the White House at the corner of Andover Street and 114?
Of course I do.
That's the Omni Parker house. That's the oldest house in Lawrence. That house was built before Lawrence was Lawrence. It was Andover. Oh, it's called the Parker Tavern. And it's got plenty of paranormal activity in it.
That's amazing. I never knew that. See, I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Spitaleres are from Abbott Street, which was right down the street from where you are.
It's actually only about 4 blocks from where I was, because I was on Phillip Street.
Oh, so you grew up, you were in the projects period. Yeah,
Abbott Street is only 4 blocks from where I used to live.
And then my mother grew up on Andover Street.
That is crazy. Look at that. So, what do they say? It's a small world?
It's a small world.
Yeah.
But in Lawrence, it's even smaller. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody's related to everybody.
Wow, that's awesome. See, we learn something new every day.
We do, and I've known you a long time.
That's what I said. I've known you for over 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
And I never knew you were from that area.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you grew up in an area that had, Phillip Street. I mean, that's where the kid disappeared. That
it was. There was only about...
that was in 1976, the year I was born. I was born in June, and he disappeared in August of 76.
He did, leaving the state pool area.
Right.
Yeah, I think his name was Eric.
Nope, it was Andy Puglisi. We've been on and off going down there for the family the last couple of years, trying to help them,
What's his first name?
Andy.
Andy, that's right. That's right.
Andy Puglisi. His father was good friends of mine. His father's still alive today. His cousin.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, you were breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
His cousin and I are very good friends, and we just found out that Andy's cousin, through marriage, is related to me. That's how big Lawrence is.
Oh.
Well,
such a small world.
3-4 months ago, in a weird way that we won't discuss over the radio, but I'll tell you next time I see you personally how that went through. But yeah, we're all related in Lawrence. But yeah, no, and in fact, they just celebrated the anniversary of him missing about a week ago. We usually film it, but we've been so busy at the studio, we never got down there. They have a monument right near the pool.
A small memory of him, because if you remember, the Kane Junior High School used to be there. His house was very close to that.
Right.
And then there was a softball field. Right. So the way my house was, we were diagonal across the street from that field. So I could see their house from where I lived. And there used to be a huge oak tree. And guess what? I'd always be hanging out and climbing the oak tree and had conversations with him and just remembered him as kids. So when that happened, that was a really big deal. And that shows you how kind of we're all connected in some way, because I've never told anybody that. That I knew him, that how close their house was to mine. I could describe his house right now because I remember it exactly. I remember his mom calling him in for dinner. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember stuff like that. And when he went missing, it was very sad that even me as a kid thought, I'm going to go in the woods and I'm going to go look for him. Because there used to be a BMX track in that area. And us kids used to hang out there all the time. And us neighborhood kids would, play kick the can and everything. And we decided we're going to go look in the woods for him. And we did. And there wasn't any sign of him, obviously. But I have memories of that happening. I remember that. Yeah. It's very sad.
Debbie, let me ask you a question. You said that at 2 years of age that you experienced seeing a third person. Did that scare you at all at 2 years old?
No, it didn't. So what a great question, because you know how kids can trust so easily? And that's kind of how I was. I remember being at that time, being so trusting. But I don't remember seeing anything scary. I started seeing scary things when I was around 7 and 8 years old. In the younger years, I would see children, like mostly, like in spirit. And so how I want you to look at it as, because I was a child, I was attracting children. Do you know what I'm saying? So because we were a family, they're like, oh, I'll have dinner with you, or I'll take a bath with you, and things like that. The bad thing started when I started noticing the difference. It would be a feeling in my stomach when I would look at something that wasn't very good, and then I would get a feeling of it and go, oh yeah, that he's not a good person. Like, I would just get these feelings. So I figured it out, but also the bad things, I used to call them, would have different shapes and different colors, obviously different energy, things like that immediately I was not drawn to them. but I was also interested in it because how could that be? You know, like this is stuff we used to see on cartoons, or these are things that we would see in books, you know, like comic books and monsters and like all that stuff. So I knew very young that there was a difference between the good and the bad when it came to energy. But I attracted a lot of kids because I would be in school. And when I tell you, and you and Tom can relate to this, that even in school, there would be energies and spirits in school because kids would pass away, but they would still want to go to school because it's part of their routine. And other kids didn't see it, or the teachers don't see it, but I could see them and see that they still attended school. You know, they still attended the games, and they would still do these things like normal because they didn't want their schedules, or they still want to feel like they were normal, like nothing really happened to them. So that I remember. But the first bad things I saw was on Phillip Street in that particular 3-family. But I was never afraid of it. I could differentiate between the good and the bad, but I was never afraid of it. So at a very young age, I had no fear against the good and the bad. So it was self-taught.
Do you think that's part of the gift?
Absolutely. I think anyone who's in our field, we do have this thing of where we almost have no fear. And coming that way to energies, entities, spirits, it welcomes them more when we don't have any fear, so they feel like they can be themselves. And I think that's very important for them to understand, like they can come forward because we're not a threat. We understand. So the difference between the good and the bad thing, and I'm glad we're talking about that today, there's so many different things on TV that make even bad entities look really bad, when I always looked at them as, what happened to you to make you like that? Boy, something must have really happened to you. Because I feel I almost have pity for them sometimes and compassion. And I know that sounds really strange and weird, but I think that's why I've never, in all honesty, been harmed, or nothing's ever really come after me per se or anything like that, because I can do both. I can understand both sides. And I'm a tough chick, you know? And I also think that is too, is look, I'm going to sit here and support you, and I'm going to understand all the stuff you're going through, but don't mess with me, you know? And I'm very much like that. And as you know, we've been on investigations before where we've had bad entities. They haven't harmed us. They haven't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they just kind of want attention most of the time. So if that answers anything for people listening to this, is the good and the bad, just like on Earth, they reside together on Earth as they do what we would call the other side. All these other dimensions have the good and the bad. We coincide together.
Yeah. If that and you know what? Knowing you for 20 years like I do, you're right. You are a tough chick.
Thank you.
Debbie,
I know, it's so true. It really is. But I look at things like I feel bad, you know, when we come across someone who's got anger or hate, you know, and things like that. That's when I'm like, what happened to you to make you like that? You know, like, what's going on here? Sometimes they just want to give us a message, and sometimes they just want to complain, or they just don't want you to be there, you know. But pretty much all of us can say that that's happened before, but, you know, it's been okay. Sometimes it's just about getting the word across.
So at what age do you come out to your peers and your family, your loved ones?
Man, that's a tough one, because I remember I used to go to St. Anne's for CCD, Sunday school, and like I had all my sacraments and all that. And it started as early as me basically, and I can't believe I'm admitting this, but like talking to nuns around the age of 7 years old, of telling them I could see these things. And because now when I'm at St. Anne's, that used to be a school, it was extremely haunted. And I didn't even want to go to the bathroom by myself because I could hear footsteps walking behind me and nobody's behind me. And then I keep walking and then nobody's behind me. So I'd be like, I don't want to go down there by myself. Could you come with me? So, and I remember they're like, why? And they're like, fine, I'll go with you. And then they would send somebody down with me. And the most breaking point about that was when they started hearing what I would tell them. I go, did you just see this footsteps? Somebody's following us. And then when that teacher, who was a nun, heard it herself, it was so funny because now she can't say that I was lying or that I was being afraid for no reason.
What school was that?
Her and I were going to the bathroom at the same time. A door, because it was those wooden doors, it was just painted green, shut. And it was as if someone also went into a stall like me and her did. So you can't make this up. That literally when her and I came out, she grabbed my hand, and boy, did we walk up those 3 flights pretty freaking quick.
What school?
She understood what I was telling her.
Debbie,
what I'm saying? So she was one of the first ones, and I never shared that story with anybody.
Debbie, what school was this? What school was this?
That was St. Anne's. Do you remember that?
St. Anne's is still open. It's quite the building to be in there.
It's a brick building, isn't it?
Yes, it's on the Methuen.
On the outside of it, it has a fence on the outside.
Yeah, and it's still used as a special needs behavior school today.
Crazy.
It's still a school today.
Wow, it's a heavy energy there for sure.
Well, just a quick brief history of that one. St. Anne's was not too far from the 1918 influenza camp that was up over the hill at the cemetery, where they put out the white tents.
Oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's only up the three. You could almost look up the hill from St. Anne's and see where the tents were.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. Have you ever been in that building before?
What, St. Anne's?
Yes.
Many years ago, I went in there to do a historic talk, and my head was ringing the whole time.
Oh, that's what, see? And you remember that. So the energy was so heavy there. And the bathrooms were in the basement. So when you walk through the doors, that staircase going downstairs led to the bathrooms. Mm-hmm. And if you were able to use the nurse's bathroom, you were lucky. The nurse's bathroom was on the main floor, but that was only one toilet that usually the staff would use. So when you had to go to the bathroom and you knew you were going downstairs, there was some scary stuff. So, I remember those things. I remember being that young. But telling my parents was a different deal because I was young. I was probably, because I remember when we lived on Phillip Street, around that 6 to 7 age range, and I saw this paper clipping of these 2 boys, and I was at my grandmother's. She lived upstairs, and I remember looking at them, and I said, "Oh yeah, I see them." And she goes, "How do you see them?" I said, I see them. I talk to them. And so my grandmother goes, "Do you know who they are?" I said, "No." And then she explained to me those are her 2 sons that drowned years ago in Canada. And it was a newspaper clipping. And I didn't know that. And I was like, holy crap, because those are my uncles that I'm actually seeing and talking, but they were around the ages of 11 and 10. They were almost like Irish twins in age.
Right.
So I didn't know that was those were her sons. So it started coming out probably around that first grade time frame. And I was told to be quiet about it. I was told not to say anything. I was told, don't talk about that. Basically people are going to think you're crazy. And it was just one of those things that you do not discuss in public. You don't bring that up.
Here's a good question. So I don't call myself a psychic, but I have abilities. You've seen me, right?
Yeah.
So I never knew where it came from. Now, my grandparents on both sides, I lost my grandfather on my father's side when I was young. But my grandmother lasted till I was in college on that side, and I was close to my other grandparents who, one made it to my sophomore year in high school, and the other one was I was in college when he passed away too. But they never talked about it, right? My mother talked about having abilities, but she shut them down because she never wanted us to in this field. But what was interesting was, now, you know me a long time, but Bob knows me a long time too. You both do, but maybe you didn't know this. I'm the last person you want cleaning out a house, okay?
Why is that?
Because I'm a collector, okay, of many different things, okay? So I'll get the house cleaned out, but you don't have to hire a dumpster most of the time.
Right.
Okay, because I find out what needs to be donated. Then there's the trinkets I want. Then there's the garbage, okay? You can donate a lot to Habitat for Humanity and then all these great nonprofits. But when my father hadn't passed away yet, but he started getting dementia, we closed his business down, right?
Okay.
My mother goes, well, I'm going to leave you here to finish the clean out. Finish cleaning out the desk, throw everything out. Okay. I found astrological charts, and I found a wooden tarot deck.
Really?
Wooden tarot deck.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never even heard of that, but it sounds like amazing.
Now, just so everybody knows, there was a 19-and-a-half-year difference between my mother and father. Okay, my father would be 86 this year. If today? He turned July 28th. He would have turned 86 years old if he was alive. And my mother's in her late 60s. Okay.
Wow.
So there's a difference. So, of course, he was, older, and so they were. One of these days, I'll show them to you, Debbie and Bob. I kept them, obviously. And then after my father passed away, I started getting phone calls, people needing paranormal help. I always get the phone calls, but I was getting them from cousins I hadn't seen in 25 years.
That's amazing.
Come to find out, those cousins all have abilities. There's abilities on my mother's side of the family that were shut down and abilities on my father's side. Now, with you, Debbie, do you know where yours came from? Both sides or one side?
It did. It was both sides. And, this is the thing between our generation and the older generation. The older generation was afraid of it, and Catholic religion, because, obviously I have all my sacraments. We went to church twice a week.
Me too.
And the whole gamut.
Yeah,
that it wasn't talked about, very much. And when in between the ages of about 6 and 10, I realized, okay, well, this is really what it is. And I was learning a lot, and I hate to say this, by going to the library at schools, and here I am taking books out about ghosts and hiding them because I didn't want anybody to see that I was reading them, and learning that way. And then MTV, started coming out, and MTV had so many videos and shows and all that stuff too that were really pushing against the grain. And I remember seeing Michael Jackson's video Thriller.
Yeah, I was going to say Thriller.
The first time I saw that video, I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, that's what I see. I see things like that because they're like zombies, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, so someone else can see what I see because that's what I see. And I remember thinking okay, this is crazy because now it's being shown on MTV. You know what I mean? So that's what I really remember. But for my family, they wanted it to really be quiet and thought it was more witchcraft and satanic stuff than anything else. And it really wasn't.
Right. And it wasn't. Right. And that's
it wasn't evil, and I wasn't evil. I also remember telling my mom things, and it would just make her cry. She didn't want to hear it. And she, she would be like, don't talk about that stuff because, if we had company coming over, she's like, don't mention it. Don't talk about that. Don't say it. Because it was like an embarrassment almost, or she was afraid of me telling someone something that would make us look bad, basically. And she didn't know any better. I forgive her. I understand because now, of course, she's a great supporter. But at the time, it's very scary of people thinking these things of you. And just to give you an example, when I went to Alva in high school, I was only a freshman. And not only did I come from Lawrence and I had no friends, and here I am, I thought I had a couple, maybe 2 people I was friends with, and you're getting close, and now you're telling these 2 people you can see ghosts. And that went through the school like wildfire. And I all of a sudden was casted out. If it was a Salem witch trial, they were putting me on the stake. And it was horrible. And it was so embarrassing and scary and bullying and everything, because I shared it with 2 girls who did the Ouija board with me, who did stuff with me. And they're the ones who tell everybody that basically I was the witch, and then their parents got involved, and it was a big mess. Like, this is something that I just was raked over the coals for. And I shut it down until like after I graduated, and then in my early 20s, I decided I'm playing with this again. And I say playing with it because I didn't really want to do it for work or for a job or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of have some fun. And I did. I did that. And the fun I'm talking about is, going on paranormal investigations or going into haunted houses illegally, like breaking in haunted houses, little things like that. That was more of, what I mean, like fun kind of things. And then, then it got a little bit more serious because I got settled down and had Chelsea and stuff. And that was it. It just, 20, how old am I? So Chelsea's 23. So she was 21 when I started the business. So, and here I am. It's still the same. But it was so quiet, like in my family. It was just like, don't say this. So both sides where one of my aunts who's passed away now, when all this came out with the high school and someone came over to talk to my parents and saying awful things about me, and my dad wasn't as furious. He was more furious at the fact that they were talking about me that way than he was furious that I said I could do these things. So I came home from school and he's like, I'm going to ask you a question. Can you do that? I said, yes. And he goes, okay. I go, are you mad at me? He goes, no. He said, I think people are naive if they think we are the only ones out there. And that's what he said.
That's true.
And I have goosebumps. Right. I have goosebumps just when I said it to you.
Yeah, no,
so
that's true.
I always remember that. People are naive if they think we're the only ones there. Yeah. And that was it. And that's how I knew he was okay with me. That's how I knew.
Right.
And his sister could do the same thing. She was so spiritual. My mom's mom, whose sons died from the drowning, she was very intuitive, but never wanted to tell people. She didn't want to admit that she could see things, that the generation was different back then.
Right.
Like your mom's mom. Right.
Right.
So, and I respect it. It's okay.
Well,
but I went through a lot of pain.
Right.
I went through a lot of sadness and pain because of it.
Right. There's nothing wrong with it. It was a generational thing, and we just have to accept it. But I often wondered, that's why I ask people when we have them on the air, or just in general when I'm working with new psychics and stuff, what side of the family did the abilities come from? Because some say, oh, it came from my mom's side, or it came from my dad's side. Very rarely do I hear. I think you'd be the first person, in all honesty, that told me it came from both sides of the family. I can't remember the last time I heard that, other than me, which is
can you then contribute, Deb, your success to the fact that it did come from both sides?
I think when I realized I had support, that helped me. And people ask me this all the time, like, oh, how did you get started? How did you get started? Well, in all honesty, I was married at the time, and my husband at the time lost his job. And I'm nursing a baby here, you know, and I was like, holy crap, we're going to lose everything. It's not like I had all this money in savings or in the bank. And I said, I'm going to start doing these psychic fairs because that's how confident I was. Here I am, no training, nothing. And all I did was buy a deck of tarot cards, register for this. I think I paid $25 for a table, you know, at this psychic fair. And I was the first one in and the last one to leave. And I did those for a year. And that 1 year, I basically was voted out that I wasn't allowed to do those fairs anymore because it's like always the same people at those fairs. And they decided that I was taking away too much business, saying that I had family outside telling people to come in and see me, which was not true at all. And they all voted me out, and they said I couldn't ever do it again. And I decided to break out on my own, which I did. And it has been, like I said, 21 years, and it'll be 22 years in January. And I never looked back, and I never did a psychic fair again. And, you know, it's for some people, 100%. For me, it's not, because it just gave me a lot of people dislike me, you know, and that's not really a fair thing. I worked really hard.
Right.
And, you know, and and you guys know I open up my arms, you know, for everybody. And,
correct.
And so that just kind of pushed me out of the way. And Bob will tell you, I never looked back. I met Bob when my kids were in strollers. I never looked back. I just kept going.
Yeah, that's what you do. That was it. That's what I mean, that's exactly what you do. I mean, I was warned years ago with everything I do from an old friend who's now deceased, okay? Watch out for professional jealousy, no matter whether you get paid in the field or not. Right. There's jealousy out there on a regular basis, and you have to watch out for it. I mean, even with Essex...
No matter what field
exactly.
You're in, there's going to be jealousy somewhere, you know?
Right.
I just wanted to go in, do my work, get my money, out the door, call it a day. Thank you so much. That's all I wanted. I didn't want any trouble at all. Nothing. And then it just didn't end up that way. You know, so it wasn't, it was awful. It really was. But that's how it got started. My husband at the time lost his job, and I'm like, I got to do something to bring an income. I got to do something. Well, this is what I knew how to do. And I'm nursing a kid, and that's what happened. And that's, you know, if the universe put me in that position, it really did. And, you know, we've all worked together. We've done cases. We've done paranormal stuff. I've helped find missing dogs. I mean, we're literally so many missing dogs I've helped find. So it goes in many different areas where it's what I do. So I have a business, but then there's other things I do that have been pro bono. And yes, I do get satisfaction out of that too. You know what I'm saying? And I get to choose what I can do and what I can't do. And I try my best because time is so limited for you, for Bob, for everybody, that I try to do what I can with my energy and the time that I have, you know? So, and thank God my mind is still okay. My conscious and subconscious is still good.
All right, so let me ask you and Tom this question. Because we get this from our listeners all the time. What is the difference between a psychic and a medium?
So there is a difference, and this is why I think it's important for people to explain what the difference is, because sometimes people set up something not realizing that it's this or that. So a psychic is someone who can sometimes do past, present, and future things, okay? And sometimes they can get in touch with angels, spirit guides, and sometimes someone's grandmother can come in. Absolutely. That's a psychic for sure. And usually, you know, psychics can do the tarot cards or crystal balls and pendulums, things like that. That's how they can get their information from. Awesome. Psychic mediums, they're a little bit different. We can do past, present, future, as well as talking to spirit. So there's like many different dimensions with us where we do past lives. I just did a session talking to dogs the other day because dogs are passed away. So like we are very vast, and psychics as well. It is a different definition, and psychic mediums we can focus on, and I don't mean to be morbid, but we focus on the ones who have passed away most of the time. So that's it there. But there's got to be, no matter who you see, it has to be the right fit for you. And I just posted this on Facebook last week, that it has to be the right fit for you personality-wise, financially, spiritually, everything. Because if it's not a good fit, you'll be unhappy. You know what I mean? With whomever you're choosing. So make sure you do your homework and making sure this is the person that can provide this for you. So when you see someone who's a psychic medium, they should be able to give you things to confirm it really is that person that they're connecting with. If they can't confirm something from spirit that's really that person, then there's not a connection there. So psychic mediums should really be able to, I don't want to use the word focus, touch base with spirit where the person that you're working with would only know information about that person. And that's what I do. So it's a tricky scale. It really, really is. Because in every field, no matter what it is you do, no matter what it is, there's good and bad. So we take you, Bob, Tom, me, we take pride in what we do and try to connect with things so people can see that there's a true connection there. So that takes us like starlight ahead of others who can't confirm these true connections. So there's a big difference, So and not just that, but the person that you're working with should, number one, love what they're doing, be confident in what they're doing, being able to showcase and confirm things that only they can confirm. That's what you should be looking for. And not just Google or ratings or, how about people's references and how about, I am huge on that, like referrals. That's the way to do it, because then whoever referred this person, that they shared what their experience was like. And so they didn't just look on Google rating and they didn't just do that. They heard from somebody that you're able to do this. And that's the best. Right. That is the absolute best. Right.
Yeah, and you do that the best of any medium I've ever encountered, because I've referred people to you that have been now with you for years as part of your group. So you do a great job at that. Debbie, you've worked with law enforcement, which in the way of a full disclosure here, you can't really talk about. We understand that. But you've worked with law enforcement, you've worked with paranormal teams, and you've worked with individuals one-on-one. What do you find most rewarding to yourself?
Well, what's really, Bob, what a great question, because, what's really hard for me, and this goes with the rewarding part of it. It's in the field that we are in, you kind of have to have a little bit of a hard shell on you, right? Like you got to be a little bit hard shell, a little bit strong, but you got to have compassion and empathy at the same time. So when I'm working, no matter if I'm on a missing persons or missing dogs, if I'm talking to someone who lost their husband or wife and things like that, I have that human side to me. So my rewarding side is once that person gets the emotion, I know we got it. Like I know that did it. That comment just did it. That confirmation just did it. So I get rewarded with that, knowing we're on the right track. That was what was supposed to be said. You know what I mean? Like I know that. But you know what kills me the most is when people either unfortunately lose their kids. Absolutely kills me. And it happens more than people realize and breaks my heart. So, you know, those sessions that break your heart, I can hold it together for that half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. But boy, when I hang up, you're feeling all different types of things because life isn't fair. And there's a lot of sadness going on out there. And during a session, I keep my composure, right? But when I hang up, I feel so much pain for people that it's like in my blood, you know? Not only do I deal with my own life, but then I'm dealing with everyone else's sadness. So it's extremely hard. And confidentiality, of course. It's extremely hard. And whenever you think you guys are having a bad day, or if I think that I'm having a bad day, let me tell you something.
Someone's got it worse.
There's a lot of people out there going through absolute hell.
So, Debbie, you just brought up a good point, okay? For everybody listening across the Great Ocean, the Great Lake, South America, North America, across the pond. Now, you said something that was real interesting, and if you can answer this question, be great. If you can't, we understand it, okay?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the list. So, you just said something that when I talk to other psychics, and sometimes myself after I get out of channeling, it takes me some time. So, and it's just not just getting my energy back, but how do you? So you're having. Let's do the worst case scenario. Debbie's having a bad day. Okay. Hopefully that doesn't happen all the time. And 99.99% of the time you're having great days. You get a call.
Yeah.
And this person needs you that badly. And even though you're having a bad day, you got to deal with this person. And this person's having a worse of a day than you. Now, you've done their reading, their tarot card. That's private, okay? You hang up the phone with the person. Now you got your not so great energy and their not so great energy. So how do you deal with that to get yourself back to a balance?
I love that question because it's got to be self-maintenance, and self-maintenance has to do with consistency. So, and it's in every area of your life. You need balance. And I haven't had a really good 2 years, and Bob understands that. And so it has been a struggle, you know, like maintaining myself and my family and maintaining change and maintaining clients. But work has kept me alive, and it's kept me going, and has given me purpose, as well as my young adult children. So it's like a switch goes off. And so I can literally cry an hour ago and know, okay, I got an appointment at 6 o'clock, the switch goes back on. So my conscious and subconscious is so in tune and trained to do that, and thank the universe. It has never been altered, even throughout my struggles. It's never been altered. So I don't know, besides the fact of my consistency. Bob doesn't know this, I lost 50 pounds, so I lost a lot of weight because I exercised, and I'm completely sober. I've made a lot of changes, but even when I would still have a Red Bull or, you know, didn't exercise and all that, I still maintained myself to be almost like a robot. So when I began to work, it's like a switch that just goes on. But the minute I'm done, and then I become Debbie again. And my mom has said to me in the past, Bob, she came to one of our events at Sandown Town Hall, and she spoke to me about it. And she said to me that when I work, she goes, Debbie, your whole face changes. She goes, it doesn't even look like you. She says, you look at a whole different person. She said, my demeanor changes, the way I carry myself, the way I walk, the way I talk. She says, my face changed. And I never knew that until someone else said that. And I was like, interesting, right? That like our demeanor changes, or our faces, or mannerisms, like all that. So I didn't realize it until someone else said it. So I guess we become a different outlet or a different person. I don't, you know, I'm not a psychiatrist or nothing like that, but I can say that I know that there are these different sides that automatically, like, okay, Dad, well, guess what? Yesterday, we went to a funeral, but today we're doing this. The same morning, my grandmother, whom I love so much, the same morning that we buried her, I took a client before we buried her. No lie. Because that's how I'm literally trained. Like, that's how I am. And so I could still do that and go to the funeral and still go on with my life.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, because you have a distinct advantage because you understand that they're passing over to maybe a better place than they left.
Correct. And Bob, it's a bittersweet double-edged sword kind of thing because I can see them. They're in my house, and I have the pleasure of doing that. And both my kids are mediums, which Bob and I have discussed that before, but I don't think Tom knew that. So we sort of live. Our life is that. Our life is knowing, like, oh yeah, so Minnow Gratian just walked through the door. It's just so funny. But that is how my life is. And so going through my difficult times, I know when they're there, and I know when they're touching me, and I know when they're talking to me, and it's beautiful for me, And I also know that we're going to see them again, like on a different form. And Bob doesn't know this. I haven't told him, and Tom doesn't know. But my son was in an accident last Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope he's all right.
Yeah, car accident. He is okay. Thank you. And it was crazy. Oh my gosh. And that the next morning, my uncle came through to me and stared in the kitchen. He goes, oh yeah. He said, just to let you know, we were with Christian when that happened. It was me and Mom, meeting my grandmother. Yeah. And I go, Christian, Gratian just told me that he was in the car with you, and Meme was in there too. My son's like, I know. I'm like, oh my God,
Wow.
But it's just nice, that they're there, even though things like that happen.
Right.
So yeah, it's a double-edged sword because one day I'm going to lose my parents. You know what I mean? And I know I'll still be able to see them and contact them and listen to them and feel them on my bed and all that, when other members of my family may not have that gift.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
so it's really hard.
I do.
Yes.
So I do. It's bittersweet, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, even when my father was passing, okay, I mean, I'm in the room. We're at a hospice house, right, in Haverhill.
Right.
Sitting in the room. All of a sudden, his father came in first. I could feel the presence. Then his sister came in. And then about 3 minutes before he passed, his mother came in on her birthday. So my father died on his mother's birthday at 11. Well, it was 11:10, but the nurses say 11:15 because that's when they came back into the room, the official.
Pronounced them, yeah.
Right. But 11:10 in the morning, and I could feel my grandmother there, my aunt there, and my grandfather. And that was the grandfather I lost. I was born in 1976. He died in 1984, so I would have been, I'm not great with math, but yeah. I don't,
But you know what, Tom, what you just said?
It was about 8.
You said, I felt, right?
Yeah.
I felt. That is so true, because it's just a feeling. So when you pay attention to that feeling, it pops in your mind what that feeling is or who that feeling is.
Right.
And if you pay attention, like, oh, that's my grandfather, that's that person, because it's a feeling that we get. And by having these abilities, we're just so in tune with that feeling. And when that image comes in our mind or that name, like, we're just so in tune with it. And so when you said that you feel that, I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. It's a feeling that you get. And I remember being with Bob one time, and Bob, you were doing your thing, and you were talking to Spirit. We're at the dance studio, and I remember you one time saying, I think there's someone standing behind me, and because that's a feeling you got. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but you paid attention to it, and you were right, because when you turned around, I forgot what instrument you had. It was going off like crazy. So, you know what I mean? So it's like when you're going with the feeling of something, you pretty quick if it's male, female, energy, entity, good, bad. Like we just pay attention to what you're being shown. That's how easy it can be.
No, I mean, you're right about that, Debbie. And I tell people this all the time when I'm on the circuit talking, and we're in the circuit month now. If you want to know that, library talks and all that other jazz.
Yeah,
I tell people all the time, and even on my ghost hunts at Hilldale, and I think you probably heard it when I said at the train station too. I said we all have abilities. We just need to focus and concentrate on our third eye. We all have it. It's just you need to focus.
Every person is born with it.
Right.
Even if we have health or physical issues, everyone is born with it. I just happen to know at a very young age that this was different. Mm-hmm. And I just picked up on it really quick. And, because I can hear and see things that other people, like physical people who are not in tune, I'll be walking the dog and ask questions of why me? Why am I doing this? Why? And then I'll hear because you can. That's why you're doing it, because you can do it.
Right.
So, and it gets me going again, okay, good. Brush myself off, start doing it again, So it's, we're managing you and Bob and everyone else who's in this field. We're managing living as a human with grief, health problems, sometimes stress, everything. And then we have another side to us that's the spiritual side that has so much to it that we need to balance kind of both of them. But so I always tell people I'm on the other side more than I'm here. I like the other side more than I'm here, because humanly, look at everything we're dealing with on a daily basis, right? So when I'm working with clients, or say doing investigations, or taking videos of my own home of energy and everything, it takes me away from the human experience. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So. And just like when you guys do investigation, doesn't it take you away a little bit from your reality?
Oh, no. Right.
Yeah.
No, you're right about that. You're right.
Yeah, I think it does. I think too, Deb, that, and Tom, I think that you said everybody has the ability. I think what our listeners have to understand is you have to be able to be open to that kind of reception. Yes. I believe that our loved ones will come through as long as we're open to them coming through.
Always.
That is true.
I always say to people, before I start with someone, if I don't know them, I'll say, you're open for the experience, right? And they'll say, yes, or I'm nervous, or I'm this. I'll have them shake it off. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, just shake it off. Everything's going to be fine. Because I do everything virtually, I'll say to them, if I was there, I would hold your hand, but I'm not. So I want you to imagine that I'm holding your hand, and we're going to be fine. I said, I will walk you through it. That's what I say. So this way, it opens them up a little bit more. And you got to remember, 9 times out of 10, I'm dealing with someone who's grieving. So it's a tough process,
Right. Right.
And it's, but once it gets started, 5 minutes in, 7 minutes in, and we're there, it's a beautiful thing, beautiful experience. But we're doing good work, guys. And, regardless if it's paranormal investigations, if you're teaching, if you're speaking, if you're doing these podcasts, we're teaching people stuff that they're uneducated about. And the more educated that you get about the subject, it becomes more interesting. We are supposed to understand. We are supposed to understand the passing, like people who passed. We're supposed to try to do that and get more information on it and share it. Like, we're supposed to be doing that. And I always say that when you're uneducated on a subject, how can you understand it? So that's why you should get educated on the subject.
Debbie, how can our listeners?
It is amazing to me.
Yeah, Deb, how can our listeners reach you?
So I'm on Facebook at Debbie Raymond, New England Medium LLC, and Instagram is also DebbieRaymond.medium. It's my business name, so Debbie Knowles is my legal name. And then on TikTok, I'm also Debbie_New England Medium, so they can find me there too. And it's a great community. We are an amazing, understanding group, very positive, uplifting. I recommend anyone to find us there. And my website is www.newenglandmediumllc.com. So
great.
It's been a ride. It really has been. And you know something? I'm going to do this as long as I possibly can. You know, people joke around like, "Oh, I'm going to retire at 69 or 72." I'm like, yeah, if I'm still talking when I'm 85, I'm still going to be doing this. So, listen, I don't care. Like, it's my physical state. I understand our bodies, right? But if I can still talk and everything's okay, I'm still going to be doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, when are you going to start slowing down? You know what my answer is? When I'm looking at the dandelion roots.
Yeah, when I'm dead. Debbie, we're running out of time, unfortunately, and I wanted to get to some of the books that you've authored. Just give our listeners an overview of some of the names of the books that you've written, because I know the Titanic was a huge seller. It was a great read, one of the better reads I've had.
They're both books. So we have The Heaven and Hell of a Psychic Medium, which is obviously it's a true story of mine. That's a tough one. I've had people tell me who read that book that it's very scary, because I do discuss the good and the bad. There's good and bad entities, and I describe it when I say it that it scares people. Where I've literally gotten emails of them saying I had to put the book down because that really scared me. And I, you know, when I wrote it, I didn't think at the time there would be something that would be looked at as scary. But a lot of it, at the end, people would come to me and say, I can't believe this is what you do. How can you live like that? How can you, you know, and I don't know how I can live like that. That's why I wrote the book, to explain. I live as a human, and then I hear all these other things that are happening to people, and it's a, you know, very sad life, but I do it. And then the other book is Intentional Spirits, Voices from the Titanic, which has also been great. So both books, that book in particular, The Voices from the Titanic, is exactly that. It was contacting, I don't want to say contacting, they came to me, communication about before, during, and after the ship went down. And I think I focused on 5 different parties, 5 different individuals. But that one is also a great read, and it's very sad. So
now where can our listeners find these books?
On Amazon. So they can find it on Debbie Raymond or Bonnie Meroth, Meroth. She's a co-author, and she also helped me edit the book as well. And both books are award-winning books where we've won awards in London, England, Paris, France, Los Angeles, and New York. So it's pretty great.
Well, listen, Deb, unfortunately we're out of time, but what we'd like to do on behalf of Tom and myself is invite you back soon to kind of focus on some of these books, because I think your books tell another whole story that we didn't get to this evening.
Right.
They do.
So we'll have you on.
With the book about my being a psychic is the scary stuff that's in there, because people who have read it have said to me that they've witnessed the same thing or witnessed the same entities. And that I found so interesting. You know?
Yeah,
like, how
that's
can
great.
it be? How can, you know, how can us, you know, all of us, or these people telling me that experience or can describe the same that I'm describing in the book. So that means there's, you know, groups and everything, even on the other side. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We have a lot to talk about. Even
we do.
Halloween is coming. So
yes.
So listen.
Lots to talk about, gentlemen.
We do have a lot to talk about.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Paranormal Zone, Debbie. It's been a great show, and we really appreciate it. We look forward to having you back real soon.
I would love that. We have so much to talk about. Thanks,
all right.
guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Debbie.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Debbie, that was a great host tonight again. Just want to remind everybody that there's a bunch of stuff coming up. You can follow us on Facebook. September 13th kicks off Trails and Sales at Haunted Hilldale Cemetery. That is a free event, so hope to see you all there. And Bob, I want to thank you and have a good night.
Well, Tom, thank you for a great show. You did a great job.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Good night, all.
Good night. We'll see you soon in the Paranormal. I'm heading back to the crypt.